Survival in pro wrestling means changing who you are. Some men change outfits or change the way they act to keep it up. Others change their masks and their name. But just think for a moment with me. How many started as wild fighters, then became a high-tech masked force, later turned into a movie-style beast who died over and over? Only one ever did that. The same man who survived being thrown into the ocean in a coffin set on fire. There's only one man with many names who fits every part of that story. Picture him now, towering, labeled El Mesías, an icon shaped by a force that others can't match. One could think he arrived only for the rewards, some overseas name passing through. Yet that idea fades when you trace back what built such a presence. The origin? Not where most expect. Yes, he was born in the beautiful island of Puerto Rico in 1975. But for his debut, forget the shores of Puerto Rico. His real beginning coils deeper. The first touch of a rope and the first roar of a crowd, he felt them standing in Mexican arenas, boots on foreign dust. Long before any titles or fame, a young Gilbert Cosme Ramírez stepped into the lights of the Arena Coliseo in Monterrey, Mexico. Not long after, under Lila Cavazos, whose sharp gaze missed nothing, he faced real pressure right away. Instead of slow steps, they shoved him straight into an 8-month grind that tested his limits. Training beside icons became his daily routine. Names like Negro Casa shaped his moves, while Jerry Estrada sharpened his timing. Then there was Tejano, whose presence alone taught lessons words never could. Yet cracking the code of Mexico's llaveos and sky-high moves marked just the beginning. Building a complete fighter meant diving into every discipline without exception. Out of Monterrey, flights carried him far beyond familiar ground. In Japan, 12 punishing months unfolded inside BattlARTS gym, bones creaking under the weight of raw, unrelenting shoot-style combat. Once that test passed, roads led westward, toward America's edge, the wild, lawless world of ECW's brawling chaos. Out of nowhere came Ricky Banderas, shaped by Mexico's quick moves and Japan's sharp strikes, then hardened by America's raw intensity. Fueled by that mix, he stormed back to Puerto Rico. The International Wrestling Association never saw it coming. Chaos followed every step. Right from 1999, he started rising fast. No longer after showing up, dominance followed. People began calling him El Patriota, the Patriot, the main guy everyone recognized. Leading Los Intocables gave him a name tied to titles and chaos. Fights often left rings stained. He had battles that shaped those years. He also clashed with brutal names. Slash Venom became first, then Savio Vega. One feud stood out the most though, one that shifted everything later. Facing Vampiro changed more than just matches. In Puerto Rico, Ricky Banderas became champion more than once. Power clung to his name like sweat after a battle. Yet the fences of that ring felt too tight. Something deeper moved within his skin, and Vampiro noticed this. It was a hunger sharp enough to tear through bigger arenas. That's when the decision took shape. He decided to go back to the place where wrestling began for him. Banderas prepared to step into the Mexican ring once again. Though now, far from the wide-eyed beginner, he was transformed into something wired, relentless, a machine built to win. One day, Vampiro's phone call pulled Ricky Banderas into Mexico, alongside something far darker. Earlier that year, AAA seethed with conflict, tensions running high. The biggest rudo in AAA at that moment, Cibernético, was in a feud against the biggest técnico of the company as well, La Parka, and he demanded more than strength. He was seeking to destroy him for good. Then came a hulking figure, shrouded in mystery, calling himself La Muerte Cibernética. Behind the chilling mask stood someone familiar, one who once shaped his craft across continents, blending moves nobody expected. This version moved differently now in AAA, driven by one sharp aim. Joined by La Secta Cibernética, he put his eyes on the biggest técnico of the company, and going after La Parka cemented him as one of the biggest rudos as well. Everything exploded into a huge máscara contra máscara at Triple Manía 14. A wild crowd filled the Toreo de Cuatro Caminos, a legendary venue, buzzing like thunder before a storm. One fighter drove the other to breaking point. Still, Muerte Cibernética tasted loss for the first time, huge and raw. The mask came off, exposing the Puerto Rican warrior's face to Mexico. The fans had finally met Ricky Banderas, the Messiah. Out came the mask, yet he grew sharper, not weaker. A bad knee sidelined Cibernetico, leaving silence where orders once lived. From that gap stepped La Muerte Cibernética. Not invited, just present, taking hold like rot in wood. Power changed hands without a fight, reshaped overnight into something more crooked. La Secta Diabólica. The master had lost his puppets. Another one was pulling the strings from then on. Cibernetico wasted no time to settle old scores when he finally returned from his injury. From the first spell, it was clear this wasn't about the rules. It was raw reckoning. At Verano de Escándalo, tension cracked through the arena air. Once teacher and student and now enemies, they tore into each other under the glaring lights. A Casket stood center stage, cold and waiting. Blows landed hard, bodies crashed loud, and neither man gave an inch. In the end, one stood over the other, breathing raggedly but victoriously. The lid slammed shut, echoing like a tomb closing on what once was. Yet, it's Lucha Libre, so a basic pin or tap couldn't end things. Out of nowhere, during a moment now notorious across AAA lore, they hurled the coffin on fire, throwing Muerte Cibernética straight into the ocean. Out of sight, lost in smoke, the brawler vanished into roaring heat. Yet, what came next surprised everyone. Flames and water didn't end him. They woke something even deeper. Out of his undesired baptism, renovation was born. Time passed. By Rey de Reyes 2007, dust had cooled on all battles. Then, rising slow through the silence, a familiar figure came out with a new name. Gone was the machine-like fighter once built for war. Now he stood differently, and his new name was El Mesías. What was his claim? Not power nor revenge, but salvation for the soul of wrestling itself. What happened went beyond looks. It shifted something deep inside. From the moment he stepped forward, the audience felt pulled, not by gestures, but by force of will. Worship wasn't asked for, it was taken. Anyone too slow to kneel found themselves crushed without warning. Right away, he made it clear who was in charge. That same year, during Verano de Escándalo, a massive event brought us the quest for the first AAA Mega Champion, the AAA Mega Champion. After a long, fierce match with chessmen, which involved tables, ladders, and pain, El Mesías stood tall, winning the title and etching his name into history on pure strength alone. Without anyone expecting it, his leadership began when everything hung by a thread. After Antonio Peña, the mind behind AAA, died too soon, chaos crept into every corner. Doubts spread fast. People questioned if the whole thing would collapse. Through all that storm, one man stood tall without saying much. No luck, no timing, sheer presence carried AAA forward. More than just a fighter, he became their backbone. The name everyone circled around at the show's end. Midway through his reign, battles shaped everything. Clashes so brutal they blurred the pain and performance. That night at Triplemania 17, facing Dr. Wagner Jr., time slowed down with every blow. Nearly 40 minutes of raw force unfolded, neither man yielding an inch. By the end, silence filled the arena. Not emptiness, but awe carved into stillness. And many fans of AAA have called this match the best match in Triplemania history. El Mesías had lost the Mega Championship against Dr. Wagner Jr. at Triplemania, but still the chaos kept going. Once the frightened LA Park, the original La Parka, came back to AAA to cause damage, El Mesías moved forward without hesitation. Fights between them turned brutal. No rules, just raw beatings that jumped barriers, smashed railings, and flipped through audiences. In the end, everything came crashing down together at Triplemania 19, a hair versus mask match, máscara contra cabellera. This match was brutal, leaving us with a torn mask and a face covered in blood. In the end, El Mesías succumbed to another La Parka. When the breakaway group Los Perros del Mal, guided by the sharp, unyielding El Hijo del Perro Aguayo, began pushing to dismantle AAA from within, El Mesías stepped forward without waiting. Each clash showed something clear. Regardless of cheers or boos, he claimed that space as his own. He was the gatekeeper of AAA, and no one who faced him left without new scars. By 2014, El Mesías stood tall among the modern legends of Lucha Libre. But deep inside a worn-down warehouse in Boyle Heights, something raw began taking shape. Far from bright lights and polished rings, a different kind of show found its footing. Dark, bold, and unapologetic. With scenes shot like movies, not matches, it pulled strength from shadows instead of spotlights. Lucha Underground had been born. They needed a main villain, and that role sat empty until he walked in. Once there, everything changed. He became colder, sharper, and more feared than before. Deep in Lucha Underground's shadowed history, 1985 brought a quake that flattened chunks of Mexico City. Beneath broken walls and fallen beams lay Pascual Mendoza, who was just a kid. Everyone tied to him by blood vanished under stone and dust. He alone broke free from the wreckage. Yet what crawled back wasn't quite the boy who had entered the ruin. Broken by grief, inside him grew something dark, fed by the silence of tombs nearby. Years passed before he reappeared in Boyle Heights, known then as Mil Muertes, 1,000 deaths, carrying countless ends within one life. Not merely some fighter in tights, he moved like doom given legs. Matches ended before they began. Victory followed him, yes. The title locked on his shoulder. Bodies stacked quietly beneath flickering arena lights, one after another, gone. He created moments that lit up screens like fireworks frozen midair. One of the most remembered matches during this time is the one he had with Fénix. This deathmatch proved everyone why he was the king of 1,000 deaths. He became death embodied. He walked, he breathed, and he wrestled back. From Fénix, he moved straight on. Against Prince Puma, the temple's brightest, Mil Muertes fought so hard the nimble start could barely stay upright. Once Lucha Underground set loose their beast, Matanza Cueto, it was Mil Muertes meeting fury head-on. Two giants colliding in a storm that rattled walls down to the ground. During 4 seasons of Lucha Underground, Mil Muertes ruled the underground like a storm no one could stop. His massive frame paired with sharp instincts for how people move through stories fit right into slick, movie-style scenes. Fear followed wherever he walked in Boyle Heights. But when Lucha Underground shut down, following years of standout work in AAA, many figured we were watching the last act of one of Lucha Libre's most influential global stars. By 2018, he left behind the promotion he had supported during its toughest stretches, stepping into the scattered world of independent wrestling. Yet someone burning that fiercely for the craft never really exits it. Transformation took hold once again. Out past the edge of familiar territory, he stepped into Major League Wrestling, alongside other indie circuits. And now he was wearing the name King Mil Muertes. Not softer with age, his presence cracked arenas open just as before, muscle and menace working in silence. A ruler without a throne, he wandered fight after fight, tiles piled up behind him. Younger wrestlers stiffened when they saw him, recognizing who was in front of them. The men once on their TV screens, now standing across the ring. Yet, somehow, Lucha Libre always pulls its top stars back where they began. Back in 2024, AAA kicked off their awaited Orígenes tour, a wild tribute to the company's messy, vibrant past. Yet honoring those roots meant bringing back someone essential, a true foundation. Much to everyone's disbelief and joy, El Mesías suddenly reappeared, stepping once more into the company's ring. Roars erupted each time he appeared, showing clearly how deeply people remembered every drop of effort, every scar, every year he had poured into that square space under bright lights. Back he came, but not for cheers or old memories. His presence alone reignited what many thought had faded. Without delay, he turned toward that time's version of La Secta. One after the other fell under his assault. Clear proof that time changed nothing about how hard he hits. What remained was exactly what was feared long ago. At Guerra de Titanes 2024, the spotlight hit when he stepped into battle against Octagon Jr., both men chasing the AAA Latin American title. Midway through the clash, old instincts kicked in. He ripped off Octagon's mask, smearing red across his face like a warning. Fighting back hard, Octagon pushed every limit, even launching himself off the top rope with a wild 450 splash onto his opponent, who sprawled over a table outside the ring. The crowd froze mid-breath watching it unfold. Victory slipped away from him though, and thanks to an intervention, El Mesias became a champion at 48 years old. One thing stands clear, not because anyone declared it, but because time showed it plainly. Years wore down others, yet he stood, not unscarred, but unchanged in purpose. Call him warrior, call him myth, call him rebuilt by wires or forged in shadow. He answers only to history now. Out here, few stand like Ricky Banderas, El Mesías. While most chase what's new, he stayed close to his roots but never stopped moving. Whether it was the rough arenas of Puerto Rico or the quiet intensity of Japanese fight halls, he made noise. El Mesías didn't write trends, he set them. What poured out from him, the arena turned into myth. He may answer to El Patriota, maybe Mil Muertes, or even El Mesías. Call him what you will. But one truth remains. A real monster always gets back up. And El Mesías will always be la crema de la crema, the cream of the crop. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you had fun learning more about El Mesías, which is the name I got to know him by. Let me know in the comments the name by which you first learned about El Mesías, maybe Ricky Banderas, El Patriota, or probably Mil Muertes. Also, let me know what other luchadores would you like me to make a video on, and I'll be reading your comments. Thank you for watching. Follow me to learn more about Lucha Libre, Americ, and I'll see you in the next video.